Hi guys, welcome to the explanation for PT25 Game 4. This is an advanced ordering game, but while it's got some rules that look really scary the first time you see them, it turns out to not be that hard a game. As far as the basic setup goes, we're ordering these 7 songs, so there's nothing tricky there, except you have to keep track of whether they're ballads or dance tunes. So we'll be keeping track of the songs down on the bottom line. That's what we're ultimately ordering. And then one way to do this is then have the extra row where we'll keep track of whether these are B or D, so say it's F and that's a ballad, we'd mark it like that. So let me get these pieces down. We've got F, G, and H for our ballads, then R, S, V, and X for our dance tunes. So we keep them kind of separated there. You remember that these are the ballads and these are the dance tunes. The other way you could do this game, and I actually think I slightly prefer this, is to use subscript, right? So we'll do ballad, 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 and then these will be dance, 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 dance. And that way we can get rid of an extra line. And I like to use this technique in cases where you already know the assigned category of all the items. So now if we're putting in, say, F in this spot, we just mark that as ballad, and we can keep track of it that way. So you have a choice as to how to do the game. I slightly prefer using the subscript technique for handling the category here. Okay, on to the rules. No dance tune can be handled after any other dance tune, immediately before or after. Can't play them in order. So I'm marking dance tune, dance tune. It's a nice little drawing of how that would look if they were together. That would be violating a rule. Next rule is that H is earlier than V, simple sequencing rule. Then we've got that V is separated from S by exactly 1 spot. So the order can change around, but you know there's always got to be 1 space in between them. Now, you might be looking to combine these 2 rules because they both share the term V. It's a little bit tricky to do. You could do it like H, then our sequencing mark to tell you it's before V, then V, S. That's one way that this could look. And then you could do or. We can see S, then V, and then have a block like that, and then H would be before that V. So you'd then have a marker saying that H comes earlier in the order. However, I think it's easiest to just leave these 2 rules separated. And then our next rule, it's the same thing. We've got S immediately before F. So SF, SF. That shows you that those 2 are going to be right next to each other, but they can switch orders. This last rule is the one that I think looks scary and people might waste a lot of time overthinking it. I want you to be really good at converting unless statements into if-then statements. So what we've got here is F must be played immediately after R unless G is played earlier than R. So what that's really saying, and I'm just going to distill it right away, is saying that R is before G. Then you're going to see this order with R and F right next to each other. R immediately before F. And you can do the contrapositive of that too. R, then not F. If you don't see this, then you have to see not this. And not this, rather than writing not this, I would write the other way around, G, then R. The opposite of not R, then G. The opposite of R before G is G before R. So this is the rule and it's contrapositive right there. Okay, one last little thing. Let me get these labeled so we know which spot we're talking about. And then now I'm looking for inferences. And this is a really common theme that you see with advanced ordering games. Look at this rule right here. D, D. I gotta think that it's going to be a little bit tricky within just 7 spots to keep all 4 of these spaced out so they're not right next to each other. Imagine I try to put a D here, and then a D here, and a D here. I run out of space to put the 4th D without it being bumping into somebody and violating that rule. So the only way I'm going to be able to do this, and this is a pattern that once you see, you're going to be able to spot it on other games as well. We're going to have to split those Ds up this one way. And then with those as dance tunes, we know the rest of these are ballads. So we're labeling it with the subscript 2, 4, and 6 are going to have to be F, G, and H. The other ones are going to be RSVX. Big inference that if you miss it, there's a question that would help you get it down the road, but you're going to save time by seeing this up front. Now I'm kind of looking for other stuff. What can I see here? Well, V could never be first because H is before V. There's a trickier inference here that I don't think a lot of people will get at this point in the game, which is that S can't be first either, but we're going to wait until the question that helps us realize that. For 19, the acceptability question, I'm not going to worry about that one. You're just taking these rules one at a time, seeing where they're violated, crossing off the answer choices where there's a violation. Easily you're going to come to E there. For 20, we got to figure out something that must be true about the sequence. So I'm looking for something, since it's an early question in the game, I'm looking for something that just jumps out at me right away, right? The first song is X. That doesn't look very promising, you know? It looks like a whole other bunch of stuff could be in there too. So I don't cross A out, but I'm looking for a better answer. The fifth song is S. Again, not even really going to look at that. No ballad after a dance tune. No, they have to be played after a dance tune. So that one I can definitively cross off. And then no ballad immediately after another ballad. Yeah, they've got to be spaced out, right? They can't be right next to each other. So that's our right answer. And if you hadn't made this inference before, question 20 is going to help you make it. 21, also an early question in the game. So it's asking me about this 4 spot. I see right away that has to be a ballad. So intuition tells me, well, they're probably just going to give me a bunch of options that aren't ballads for that spot. And there's only going to be one that's a ballad. That's the only one that could be number 4. And then I look at the answer choices. There it is, staring you right in the face, G. Whereas the rest, R, S, V, X, those are all dance tunes. They can't go in this 4th spot. 22 strains your brain a lot harder. So we can cross out immediately F and G right here, F and G, because those are ballads, and we know now that ballads can't be in the 1st spot. But what about R, S, and V? These are our other answer choices here. Well, I know I've crossed out V, right? But how about S? Can S be in there? Can R be in there? There's not really too many rules about R, so I'm thinking that's a pretty promising choice for there. I'm going to look at S first. I stick S in here, and then V goes in here per this rule. Now, H has to be here because it has to be before V. But then what about this rule? Now there's no place to put the F, and we're in big trouble here. So you cannot have S in the 1st spot. And when you get something like that, you're going to want to add it to your diagram, right? We've now eliminated VS from this 1st spot. There's only 2 left here that could possibly go there. R and then X. And we've only got one of those as a choice here. But it's good rather than simply seeing that the answer is R to make note of the fact that now we know it's R or X here. That's a big inference that might help us for the rest of the game. Okay, 23 tells us that the 3rd song in the sequence is S, so now we know this is going to have to be V. And then they're asking us about the 6th song, and that's a ballad, so we're zeroing in on what the ballad that can be here is. Well, by inference, you figure out F has to be either in 2 or 4, so it's next to that S, and then our other rule here that comes into play is H is coming before the V. So those things both have to be out here in the front end. That leaves only G to jump into the 6th spot. Very typical type of inference where you're taking stock of the rules. You're taking stock of the rules and you're seeing what you have left after you've accounted for the other stuff that can go in that spot. And we get an answer of A. G has to be the 6th song. Okay, now the 7th song, sorry, this is 24. For this one, we've got the 7th song in the sequence is R. So now we know this has to be X. And I'm looking at this here and I'm thinking, okay, what could be the 5th song in the sequence? That's what it's asking about here. And that's a dance tune. So R and X are taken care of. There's only S and V left, right? Look how key it was to make this inference back here that this was either R or X. Only S or V are left that can go into 5. I'm hoping that only one of those is in among the answer choices. And here it is, D. Boom. Pretty easy to solve there. This rule didn't actually even come up except in the acceptability question. So you can see that sometimes the LSAT will put rules in places that they're just there to scare you. This rule didn't even come into play, but it was a pain in the butt to diagram, so make sure you've got it solid with dealing with unless rules when you face those down. If you don't, jump back into the basic ordering course and get that conditional reasoning stuff down solid. Okay, that's the game. Thanks for being with me. We'll catch you on the next one.